Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is part 3 of tutorial video of class 12 political science contemporary world politics. चैप्टर का नाम जानते हैं आप लोग, the Cold War era. तो अभी तक what we discussed was what is Cuban Missile Crisis, where were the areas where this Cold War entered into the phase of turning into a hot war, what kind of alliance system the world was following, NATO क्या था, Warsaw Pact क्या था, उनका objective क्या था, what was the major reason of the two superpowers trying to make sure that maximum number of countries come under the sphere of influence. What was the ideological conflict, or what how India played a crucial role, or rather I should say how non-aligned movement played a crucial role to make sure that this Cold War escalations don't cross certain limits, that they enter into the phase of a hot war. And how Jawaharlal Nehru played a crucial role. What was the role played by United Nations, the UN, United Nations Secretary General, and after the realization on the part of the two superpowers, how still after realizing that peace should exist, peace should not break, how they were preparing themselves to prepare themselves in case escalations happens in by either of the side. But to promote peace, at the same time to promote peace, to show the world that नहीं भाई हम लोग पीस चाहते हैं और हम लोग पीस ही चाहते हैं और पीस ही प्रमोट करना चाहते हैं. And there is no such ideological conflict. It is just the misinterpretation of the few political observers that they named it as Cold War. But to avert these kind of crises, how they to avert these kind of crisis, how they tried to enter into sort of various treaties that were signed, जैसा कि हमने अभी आप देख सकते हैं यहाँ पर इस पोर्शन में पढ़ा था. The test ban limited test ban treaty, nuclear proliferation treaty, anti-ballistic missiles treaty, and many such treaties were signed between these two superpowers, जिनका रेफरेंस हम इस चैप्टर के एंड में डिस्कस करेंगे. जैसे ये रीडिंग पोर्शन खत्म होगा उसके बाद नेक्स्ट पेज पे ही काफ़ी सारी treaties, and those treaties are very important because every time question comes, describe the treaties that were signed to make sure the arm control. So when they ask of arm control, they want this answer of what kind of treaties: the limited test ban treaty, nuclear proliferation treaties, and many such treaties that we'll be discussing. So in this video we'll wrap up this chapter so as to make sure कि इसके बाद हम जो next video मेरा जो आएगा उसमें मैं discuss करूँगा what are the important questions that board usually asks from this chapter, and after that we'll be discussing and we'll be starting with the new chapter of your book 2 that constitutes of Indian political scenario. ठीक है, तो without wasting any time, let's get started. Challenges to bipolarity. अब देखिए, अभी तक हमने पढ़ा कि नॉन अलाइन मूवमेंट था एक ऐसी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, नॉन अलाइन मूवमेंट एक ऐसी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन बन के दुनिया के सामने आई जिसने की रोल जो प्ले किया वर्ल्ड पॉलिटिक्स में वो था एज अ मीडिएटर. एंड टू बी प्रिसाइज, जवाहरलाल नेहरू and few other leaders such as you can see, Indonesia Sukarno, Ghana's Nkrumah, and Yugoslavia's Joseph Broz Tito. These were few leaders who become the founding fathers of the NAM. At the same time played a crucial role in making sure that wherever the crises have escalated beyond certain limits, we should make sure that we should try to mediate between the parties who are involved in this escalation and prevent this kind of this Cold War turning into a hot war, because world has already witnessed two major political crisis, or world has already witnessed two major armed conflicts in the form of First World War and Second World War, and the world is not in the position to sustain or to witness another war if it breaks out because of these escalations. ठीक है, तो अब हम पढ़ेंगे कि NAM क्या था, who were the founding fathers of the NAM, what was the major factor that led to creation of NAM, and after almost 60-70 years, how NAM has turned into a heterogeneous organization. It has become less homogeneous because the countries that are now part of NAM are not having similar political and social aspirations. They are having some different political system, and their aspirations are also, their internal as well as external aspirations are also very different from the countries who were initially the members of the NAM. Okay, so let's get started. Challenges to bipolarity. We have already seen how the Cold War tended to divide the world into two rival alliances. It was in this context that non-alignment offered newly decolonized countries of Asia, Africa, and Latin America a third option to join either alliances. Now this is very important. You must highlight. देखिए मैं जो highlight कर रहा हूँ, make sure that आप इस चीज़ को अपनी बुक में अंडरलाइन करें, ताकि जब आप लोग रिवाइज करेंगे, मेरी वीडियो से करें चाहे अपनी बुक को रेफरेंस बनाकर आप रिवाइज करें, एटलीस्ट वो पॉइंट्स अगर मार्क होंगे तो इट विल मेक इजियर, द रिवीजन विल बी मच इजियर देन यू थिंक. ठीक है, तो या an option to join either of the alliances, to not to join either of the alliances. The roots of the NAM went back to the friendship between the leaders, Yugoslavia's Joseph Broz Tito, India's Jawaharlal Nehru, Egypt's leader Gamal Abdel Nasser, who held meeting in 1956. Indonesia's Sukarno and Ghana's Kwame Nkrumah strongly supported them. This is also very important. I am underlining this entire paragraph, also highlighting. These five leaders came to be known as the five founding fathers of NAM. Again, very important. A question may come that describe the five founding who were the five founding fathers of NAM, who were the founders of the NAM, and how NAM came into existence. So this entire paragraph is very important from that perspective. And obviously the later portion, the first meeting of non-alignment was held in Belgrade, and this was the culmination of at least three factors. Now what were those three factors? Now we know that this entire paragraph is important from the perspective of how this NAM came into existence, who were the leaders of the NAM, who were the pillars of this NAM as an organization. Where was this first meeting held, and later what was the objective of NAM coming into existence? I mean, what हमें किस लिए चाहिए था NAM? So what were those factors? The cooperation among these five countries, of course. As we know, Jawaharlal Nehru was a great diplomat when it comes to increasing friendship or finding support for their nation during the struggle of independence also, and after the struggle, after India attained its independence, Jawaharlal Nehru always made it sure that our diplomacy and our relations with other countries remains the topmost priority of India's external affairs. Second, the growing Cold War tension and its widening arenas, again very important. As we know, भाई बहुत टेंशन था उस टाइम पे, वॉर लाइक सिचुएशन भी बहुत सारी जगह पे हो चुकी थी, इधर द कॉन्गो क्राइसिस या फिर आप ले लो कोरियन वॉर. तो of course the world was under threat of facing another world war. So that was another major reason why NAM came into existence, by Jawaharlal Nehru and these other leaders thought of creating an organization that can possibly deal, or that can possibly compromise, that can possibly lead to some form of international diplomacy and some sort of negotiation, an organization that can possibly serve as a negotiating organization with these two superpowers. And thirdly, the dramatic entry of many new decolonized African countries into the international arena. By 1960s, there were 16 new African members in UN, United Nations. Yes, again very important point. Okay, bhai, with after the Second World War, as we know, many countries were coming out of the grip of this British rule or French rule, Portuguese rule. तो ऐसे में जब इतनी सारी कंट्रीज यूएन के मेंबर बन रही हैं, तो इट वाज इम्पॉर्टेंट टू सेव दीज कंट्रीज फ्रॉम ज्वाइनिंग ईदर ऑफ दीज टू अलायंसेस, क्योंकि अब कोई कंट्री इंडिपेंडेंट हुई है तो इट इज़ द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट प्रायोरिटी फॉर दैट कंट्री इज कि भाई मेरी जो डिमांड्स हैं वो सुनी जाएं, रादर देन कि मैं अभी इंडिपेंडेंट हुआ हूँ, मैं किसी एक और ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को ज्वाइन कर लूँ एंड देन आई हैव टू लिसन टू देम एंड आई हैव टू फॉलो देयर कमांड्स। तो भाई उसको इंडिपेंडेंस जो मिली वो कोई फायदे में नहीं, वो कोई फायदा नहीं हुआ उस इंडिपेंडेंस का, क्योंकि भाई मेरे को अल्टीमेटली किसी और जो सुपर पावर जिसको मैं फॉलो कर रहा हूँ मेरे को उसके ऑर्डर्स मानने पड़ेंगे। अगर सुपर पावर बोलते हैं कि डिप्लॉय और पर्सनल्स फॉर हेल्प, बिकॉज फॉर हेल्प एट सम प्लेस जहाँ पे उनकी वॉर एक चल रही है, सपोज जैसे यूएसएसआर और यूएस वो डायरेक्ट कन्फ्रंटेशन में थे कॉन्गो और कोरियन वॉर में। अब अगर कोई अफ्रीकन कंट्री उनका पार्ट बन गई एंड इफ यूएस ऑर्डर्स दैट you have to send your personals, you have to send your military personals to that particular location, say कोरिया, तो उसको भेजने पड़ेंगे, they have to follow, they have to obey the orders given by the superpowers, or else they'll have to face the ire of the system or the entire this bipolar world. So again it was very important to have an organization where they can have their voice heard, at the same time where they can make sure that the leaders who are the pillars of the strength of who are the pillars of this organization, the five founding fathers or the five founding members, they can get their voice, they can take their voice to the particular when negotiate, they can take their voice or they can consider their interest and they can implement their interest while negotiating with these two organizations. Okay, the first summit was attended by 25 member states. Over the years the membership of NAM has expanded. The latest meeting, the 14th summit, was held in Havana in 2006. It included 116 member states and 15 observer states. Again, this paragraph is very important. The last meeting, the 14th summit, was held in Havana in 2006. It included 116 members and 15 observer states. As non-alignment grew into a popular international movement, the countries of various different political systems and interests joined it. This made the movement less homogeneous and also made it more difficult to define in neat and precise terms. What did it really stand for? Increasingly, NAM was easier to define in terms of what it was not. It was not about being members of an alliance. The policy of staying away from the alliance should not be considered as isolationism or neutrality, very important, because the non-alignment is not isolationism. Isolationism means remaining aloof from world affairs. This is the meaning of isolationism. Isolationism sums up the foreign policy of US from American War of Independence in 1787 up to the beginning of the First World War. In comparison, the non-aligned countries like India played a crucial role. Again, you must know, India played a crucial role in mediating between the two rival alliances in cause of peace and stability. What was the role that India played? And the strength. Now, what was the major factor that contributed towards the unity, that contributed to the unity, for the unity of this non-aligned movement as an organization? So their strength was based upon the unity and the resolve to remain non-aligned despite the attempts by the two superpowers to bring them into their alliance. Yes, this is very important. देखो, अब बहुत simple सा है. As we know, the 14th summit that was held in 2006. Now it constituted of, so the summit, when the summit held, there were 115 member states at that point. Now when NAM as an organization came into existence, it had 5 members, and eventually when the countries of Africa, Latin America and Asia attained independence, they joined non-aligned movements so as to make sure that they stay away from the getting divided into two worlds, from getting divided and making the other alliance as their rival. देखो, अगर जो NAM में जो कोई भी member था, they were regarded as the third world. The first world was the NATO forces, second world was USSR Warsaw Pact, and the third world was non-aligned movement. तो अब जब थर्ड वर्ल्ड में कोई जब थर्ड वर्ल्ड में कंट्रीज या फिर थर्ड वर्ल्ड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन जो है NAM, उसमें जब कंट्रीज हैं, सो दे आर नॉट राइवल्स, बट their interest is that they don't want to be part of any of these two ideological loggerheads. Okay, they don't want to be part of any kind of rivalry, because if they join any of the alliance, be it the USSR or be it the NATO forces, or तो अब आप अगर NATO forces को join कर रहे हैं, that means USSR is your rival. You can't seek help in case of crisis. Okay, but when you are part of non-aligned movement, you are not having any kind of problem. You don't have any kind of conflict with these two alliances. It's just that your interest is that you don't want to be part of these two organizations, and you want an organization where your voice gets a chance to be heard, and where you can represent your views at an international level. ठीक है, तो अब मेरी दुश्मनी जब किसी से नहीं होगी, तो जाहिर सी बात है, जब मैं किसी का दुश्मन नहीं हूं, तो अगर मैं किसी से भी हेल्प मांगूंगा, देन I'll get help. I'll get all the support that I need in case I enter in case the situation in my country starts getting worse. So in that case, non-aligned movement was a very good thing. But when countries from various political backgrounds and various political systems started coming together and joining NAM, तो अब जो NAM का जो बेसिक पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम था, मतलब जो NAM में जो कंट्रीज थे उनका जो कॉमन पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम था, वो चेंज होने लगा. क्योंकि नाउ दे डोंट, there might be countries that might not be following that good level of democracy. There might be countries who are following democracy, but with there is a limited, they are following limited democracy. So in that case, the non-aligned movement, it became less homogeneous in the sense that the political interests were different, the political situation was different, the political approach of the countries who were part of NAM was different. So in that case, it became to be people who were not part of NAM, or people who were trying to understand the proper definition of why this organization came into existence. It came to be defined, it was, the NAM as an organization was defined in terms that it was actually not. क्योंकि अगर बहुत सारी कंट्रीज हैं, अगर वो बहुत सारी कंट्रीज एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का पार्ट बन जाते हैं, तो ना ही उनके इंटरेस्ट सेम होंगे, ना ही उनका पॉलिटिकल बैकग्राउंड सेम होगा. सो जो कॉमन डेफिनेशन जो बनेगी, दैट विल बी कंप्लीटली डिफरेंट from the definition that was at the initial stage of the organization. So this is what this entire paragraph explains you. Okay, so, and the policy of staying away. अब देखो, NAM का major objective जो था, as you know, to stay away from either of these two alliances, either not to join either of these two alliances, because they are threatening to divide the world. And if this divide if they get successful in dividing the entire world, then there will be escalations, and there will be situations where this Cold War kind of situation will turn into a hot war, and again the world will witness the war. But so this organization decided to stay away. But some people say that the third world or the non-aligned movement was following the policy of isolationism or neutrality, but it was not, because isolationism exactly means remaining aloof from the world affairs. On the other hand, rather the countries that were part of the NAM, they were actively involved in as mediators in case of conflict breaks out in case of a war breaks out in any of the country where the two superpowers are in direct confrontation. तो अब आइसोलेशनिज्म अगर नहीं था, तो आइसोलेशनिज्म एग्जैक्टली क्या होता है? तो आइसोलेशनिज्म बेसिकली आप कह सकते हो कि जो अमेरिकन पॉलिसी थी, अमेरिकाज एक्सटर्नल अफेयर्स पॉलिसी जो थी आफ्टर अमेरिकन वॉर ऑफ इंडिपेंडेंस फ्रॉम 1787 टिल द फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर, तो वो जो पॉलिसी है जिसमें अमेरिका ने कंप्लीटली अपने आप को वर्ल्ड अफेयर से आइसोलेट कर लिया था, जबकि अमेरिका बिल्कुल भी वर्ल्ड अफेयर्स में इंटरफेयर नहीं करता था. सो दैट इज द पॉलिसी दैट वी कैन कंसिडर एज एन आइसोलेशनिज्म, पॉलिसी ऑफ आइसोलेशनिज्म. इंडिया ऑन द अदर हैंड, एज यू नो, जो एग्जांपल आपको दिया है, जस्ट इन केस द क्वेश्चन कम्स दैट define what was the basic characteristic of, if do you agree that the policy of NAM was not that of the isolationism or neutrality? If yes, then explain or define your answer, or give suitable examples to your answer. So in that case, you have to give the example of India, where India played a crucial role in mediating between the two rival alliances. in the cause of peace and stability. And again, if a question comes, what was the major reason that NAM as an organization remained united despite of various manipulations going on across the world to make sure that maximum countries come under the influence of any of these two superpowers? So the major pillar of strength was, the first is the five founding fathers, and second is the three factors that we have discussed in the earlier section, that is these three factors. And the third is the unity and the resolve to remain non-aligned despite the attempt by the two superpowers to bring them into their alliance. Okay, the unity and their strength was based upon the unity and the resolve to remain non-aligned. That is, they didn't want to they didn't wanted to join any of these alliances, and that was the major factor contributing towards the unity. That was one similar interest that contributed towards the unity and success of this organization, to remain intact and to remain united. Okay, moving ahead. The non-alignment is not the non-alignment is also not neutrality. Neutrality refers principally to the policy of staying out of war. The states practicing neutrality are not required to help to end the war. Yes, this is very important. They do not get involved in war and do not take any position on the appropriateness or morality of war. Yes, this is very important. The non-aligned states, including India, were actually involved in war for various reasons. They also worked to prevent the war between others and tried to end the war that had broken out. Of course, now initially we discussed what is isolationism, who followed the policy of isolationism, and how the NAM didn't follow the ideology or the policy of isolationism. And the second is the neutrality. So why non-aligned movement cannot be referred as following the policy of neutrality? This is because of the fact that if an organization, if a country is following the policy of neutrality, they are not supposed to interfere in any of the crises or any of the warlike situation that has broken out between two countries. And if they are trying to serve as a mediator to avert the crisis, to end the crisis, then they aren't following the policy of the neutrality. And the same is with the case of India or non-aligned movement as an organization. India wasn't following the policy of neutrality. Non-aligned movement as an organization entirely was not following the policy of neutrality, because they were acting as mediators. They were acting as people or countries who were trying to serve as a neutral diplomat for making sure that these crises that has broken out across the globe because of the warlike situation or because of the ideological conflict, they were actually trying to avert these crises. Okay, and of course, this is what the portion that I have highlighted. You have to highlight this portion in the book, because this is very important. Because if a country is following the policy of neutrality, they aren't supposed to take any position on the appropriateness and morality of the war, and they are not supposed. The states practicing neutrality are not required to help to end the war, and they are supposed to remain out of the war. Whereas India, on the other hand, as I had already explained to you, India were actually involved in wars for various reasons. They also worked to prevent the war between states, and also tried to end the war that had broken out. Okay, so moving ahead now, new international economic order. As we discuss non-aligned movement, Warsaw Pact, NATO, it is also important to consider the economic sphere of everything that was happening. Because when newly independent countries like India, Ghana, Indonesia, and many such countries of Africa and Latin America, when these countries gained independence, they might be, apart from the political interest, they also have certain economic interests, and they want their economic interests to be heard in the international sphere, so as to make sure that they get support from other countries to develop their economy, and ultimately contributing to the world economy. Now, when you are part of an organization such as Warsaw Pact or NATO, then your economic interest should be similar to that of the leader of that organization. But new international economic order was completely different. It was an amalgamation of economic interests from various countries that were part of the NAM, and they formed into these countries were basically regarded as the least developed countries. Now, being least developed countries, they wanted their economic interests to be heard. They wanted their economic interest. They wanted the support for their economic interests from the superpowers that were trying to make sure that their political and their economic interest is followed by the all the other countries in the world. But this new international economic order tried uh, negotiate economic interests with the superpowers. No, it didn't. But this new international economic order at least was a step towards making sure that the interest of the third world countries, economic interest particularly, economic interest of the third world countries gets heard at the international arena, or gets a voice at the international arena. What was this new international economic order? The non-aligned countries were more than merely mediators during the Cold War. The challenge for most of these non-aligned countries, a majority of them were categorized as least developed countries, was to be more developed economically to lift their people out of the poverty. Economic development was also vital for independence of new countries. Without sustained development, a country could not be truly free. It would remain dependent on richer countries, including the colonial powers, from which the political freedom had been achieved. As mentioned, these least developed countries, as I said, when a country is categorized as least developed country, or say when a country gets independence, जो मेजर ऑब्जेक्टिव होता है उस कंट्री का कि भाई पहले मैं अपनी इकोनॉमी को सही करूं. जब तक मेरी इकोनॉमी सही नहीं होगी मैं कोई भी पॉलिटिकल स्टैंड ले लूं, कोई फायदा नहीं है. ऑफ कोर्स अगर वो कंट्रीज जो न्यूली इंडिपेंडेंट है वो किसी भी एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को ज्वाइन कर ले, वो किसी भी अगर इन दो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन या तो नेटो या तो वॉर्सो पैक्ट किसी को भी ज्वाइन कर लेती तो ऑफकोर्स उनको मिलिट्री हेल्प, फाइनेंशियल हेल्प मिलती, पर उनको वही इकोनॉमिक और पॉलिटिकल इंटरेस्ट और वही इकोनॉमिक और पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम फॉलो करना पड़ता जो कि इन कंट्रीज में है. ऑन द अदर हैंड, आफ्टर गेनिंग इंडिपेंडेंस, द मेन ऑब्जेक्टिव ऑफ दीज कंट्रीज इज टू हैव their system of thoughts and to have their political system that they had imagined of during the when they were in the when they were under rule, when they were under British rule, or say any of these colonial, when they were under the rule of any of these colonial country. So when they got independence, they wanted the economic interest should be heard. अब उनको चाहिए कि भाई मेरा जो economic interest है वो भी international sphere में उसको respect मिले, उसको अगर मैं address करूँ तो at least उसको support मिले. So in that case, new international economic order was one such thing, was one such kind of economic policy that was created by the non-aligned countries to negotiate the economic deals with these two superpowers. So the idea of new international economic order originated with this realization. The United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD, brought a report in 1972 entitled Towards the New Trade Policy for Development. Now, in order to address the interests of this new international economic order, the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development brought a report. That the report entitled Towards New Trade Policy for Development. Now, what this report actually wanted, what kind of reforms this report actually wanted, which were to be accepted and followed by the countries that were developed, not by the countries that were facing the ire of the colonial rule. Okay, these were the policies that were to be adopted by the developed countries so as to make sure that they create enough favorable economic condition in which these developing countries can flourish, or these developing countries can find their way towards the development. What were those? To give LDCs control over the natural resources exploited by the developed Western countries. This is very important. must market to obtain access to Western markets so that the LDCs could sell their products and therefore make trade more beneficial for the poorer countries, reduce the cost of technology from the Western countries, provide LDCs with a great role in the international economic institutions. Okay. तो 4 मेजर रिफॉर्म्स इसने प्रपोज किए. पहला, जो LDCs हैं, लीस्ट डेवलप कंट्रीज, जिनको ये सुपर पावर्स, जिनका रिसोर्सेज ये सुपर पावर्स ट्राई कर रही थी एक्सप्लॉइट करने का फॉर देयर पर्सनल ग्रीड, सबसे पहले तो इसको रोका जाए. LDCs जो गुड्स प्रोड्यूस कर रही हैं एग्जिस्टिंगली, उस गुड को बेचने के लिए इन डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज से बेटर मार्केट कोई हो नहीं सकता. तो प्रोवाइड देम एक्सेस टू द मार्केट्स ऑफ डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज so as to make sure that they have the market, they have the proper space to sell their goods, provide the access to the, reduce the cost of technology from the western countries. अब अगर डेवलप कंट्रीज से कोई टेक्नोलॉजी जाएगी तो उस पर इम्पोर्ट ड्यूटी ज़्यादा कॉस्ट चार्ज नहीं कर सकते, फेयर कॉस्ट चार्ज करें. they cannot impose various duties that increases the cost of export from the that increases the cost of import for a developing country. So, and last, LDCs get a greater role in economic institutions. कोई भी economic institution अगर है world level पे, first of all the major objective of those economic institution is to make sure कि जो least developed countries हैं उनके interest को serve किया जाए और उनको maximum support दिलाया जाए. So gradually the nature of non-alignment changed to give greater importance to economic issues. In 1961, at the first summit in Belgrade, economic crisis had not been very important. By mid-1970s, they had become most important issues. Yes. As a result, NAM became an economic pressure group. Yes, of course, when economic issues get greater attention, because when at a world level the economy starts facing crisis, so the countries who are not that developed, who are developing, who are in the developing phase, who are trying to sustain somehow, who are trying to prevent their economies from getting collapsed. So when they are part of an organization, obviously वहाँ पर जो discussions भी होंगे वो discussions भी economy से related होंगे और वो discussions भी वही होंगे जो प्रेजेंटली वर्ल्ड लेवल पे हो रहे हैं और प्रेजेंटली वर्ल्ड लेवल पे फेस किए जा रहे हैं जो प्रॉब्लम्स, वही वाले डिस्कशंस होंगे. सो वैसा ही हुआ. थर्ड वर्ल्ड कंट्रीज का जो मेजर प्रॉब्लम था उस टाइम पे 70s में, जो क्राइसिस थर्ड वर्ल्ड कंट्रीज फेस कर रहे थे वो थे इकोनॉमिक क्राइसिस. आपको भी मालूम है, मुझे भी मालूम है, 60s और 70s का फेज ऐसा ही था जब इंटरनेशनल लेवल पे वर्ल्ड लेवल पे ऑयल प्राइसेस भी बढ़ रहे थे. इंटरनेशनल लेवल पे आपके दी सुपर पावर्स तो चलो ठीक है, उनका तो पोजीशन कंपैरेटिवली बहुत बेटर था, सो दे डिडंट फेस दैट ग्रेट, they didn't face deep economic crisis. But on the other hand, the countries like India and many other southeastern countries of Asia and countries of Africa and Latin America, their economy wasn't that great. Their economy wasn't doing hunky-dory. So in that case, when they are part of an organization like NAM, the political interest or the political discussion will have to shift from political to economic, क्योंकि सबसे पहला काम किसी भी कंट्री का यही होगा कि वो पहले अपनी इकोनॉमी को संभाले. पॉलिटिकल डिस्कशंस और पॉलिटिकल बातें या पॉलिटिकल नेगोशिएशंस बाद में भी हो सकते हैं. सो सेम थिंग हैपेंड विद NAM. By the late 1980s, however, new international economic order initiative had faded, mainly because of stiff opposition from the developed countries who acted as united while the non-aligned countries struggled to maintain the unity in the face of this opposition. अब देखो, ऑब्वियस सी बात है, अगर मेरी कंट्री इकोनॉमिक क्राइसिस फेस कर रही है या कोई भी अदर कंट्री जो NAM का पार्ट है वो इकोनॉमिक क्राइसिस फेस कर रही है, तो ऑब्वियसली वो पहले अपनी इकोनॉमी पे ध्यान देगी, ना कि वो पॉलिटिक्स में इंडल्ज होगी और पॉलिटिक्स खेलेगी इंटरनेशनल एरिना में. भाई मेरे को पहले मैं पहले अपना घर संभालूंगा, बाद में दूसरे का घर संभालूंगा ना. तो जब ऐसा होगा तो अब जो कंट्रीज सच एज फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड और सेकेंड वर्ल्ड कंट्रीज जो थी वो कंपैरेटिवली बहुत डेवलप्ड थी इन कंट्रीज के कंपैरिजन में। तो अब जब वो लोग अपोज करेगी इस न्यू इंटरनेशनल इकोनॉमिक ऑर्डर का, तो ऑफ कोर्स दी इक्विवेलेंट एंड इक्वल अपोजिशन सामने से भी आना चाहिए उनके स्टैंड के खिलाफ। जो डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज का स्टैंड है, अगर उनके खिलाफ अगर इक्विवेलेंट और इक्वल अपोजिशन आता नैम की तरफ से, देन कुछ हो पाता, देन उनका जो इकोनॉमिक इंटरेस्ट है उसको एक स्पेस मिलता है इंटरनेशनल एरिना में। पर वो सारी कंट्रीज बिजी हो गई इन मेकिंग श्योर दैट देयर इकोनॉमी डजंट कोलैप्स। तो अब ऐसे में when they get fragment, an organization starts getting when the organization starts or fails to show stiff united opposition, when it starts getting fragmented, so in that case the organization that has unity, the organization that shows integrity, unity, in such situation wins, and their economic interest, their political interest is always heard and always given better and more priority in the world politics and in the world affairs. Moving ahead, अब हम आ जाते हैं, ये तो था इंडियन इंटरनेशनल इकोनॉमिक ऑर्डर, नैम। अब मेजर पोर्शन हमारा जो था इस चैप्टर का, या जो हम कहें जो कोल्ड वॉर क्राइसिस थे, वो हमने वर्ल्ड पर्सपेक्टिव के हिसाब से समझ लिया। अब हम इंटरनल चीज के बारे में बात करेंगे, या फिर जो बात करेंगे इंडिया का क्या रोल था ऐसे टाइम पे, इंडिया ने क्या इंपॉर्टेंट रोल प्ले किया ड्यूरिंग दिस कोल्ड वॉर टू मेक श्योर दैट देयर इकोनॉमिक इंटरेस्ट गेट्स हर्ड एट दी gets a chance to or gets respect at the international level, and how Jawaharlal Nehru particularly played a very important role in increasing India's diplomatic position and increasing India's importance, or increasing India's position at in various spheres in world affairs. ठीक है, so India in Cold War basically discusses that only. As a leader of NAM, India's response on the ongoing Cold War was twofold. At one level, it took particularly care in staying away from these two alliances, again very जो कि हमने पहले भी डिस्कस किया है. Second, it raised its voice against newly decolonized countries becoming part of these alliances. Of course, जो पहला और first and the most important अप्रोच जो इंडिया ने अडॉप्ट किया आफ्टर दिस क्रिएशन ऑफ नैम था, पहला तो यूनाइटेड रहना है, और दूसरा जो भी न्यूली इंडिपेंडेंट कंट्रीज हैं उनको प्रोटेक्ट करना है और उनको बचाना है कि ये इन किसी भी दो ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस का पार्ट ना बन जाए, या किसी भी एक दो ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस को, ये जो दो ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं इधर दी नेटो और दी वार्सो पैक्ट, ये इनका पार्ट ना बन जाए। अपनी वॉइस उतनी बुलंद करो कि सारी कंट्रीज जो न्यूली इंडिपेंडेंट कंट्रीज हैं वो ध्यान से डिसाइड करके ढंग से कि भाई मेरा इंटरेस्ट क्या है इन दो ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस में से किसी एक को ज्वाइन करने से सर्व होगा कि नहीं, या फिर मैं न्यूट्रल रहूं। डिसाइड करो और फिर ज्वाइन करो किसी को भी, बी इट नैम, नेटो और वार्सो पैक्ट। India's policy was neither negative nor passive. Of course, it was neither negative nor passive. As Nehru reminded the world, non-alignment was not the policy of fleeing away. On contrary, India was in favor of actively intervening in the world affairs to soften the Cold War rivalries. India tried to reduce the differences between the alliances and thereby preventing the differences from escalating into a full-scale war. Very important. India's diplomats and leaders were often used to communicate and mediate between the Cold War rivals, such as Korea War in 1950s. As I mentioned earlier, as I told you, India's policy was neither passive nor negative. Why India's policy or the objective or the policy that was followed by the NAM was neither the policy of isolationism or neutrality. This is because of the fact that they wanted to engage into the affairs of the world. They wanted to engage in world affairs, but they didn't wanted to join any of these two alliances because they knew that if they will join, they'll have to follow the economic interest, the political interest of that particular leader who is leading the organization, and at the end what will happen is, there was a greater threat of they losing their independence at the hands of these organizations. So that was the major reason why they didn't join and why NAM came into existence. It wasn't that they didn't and they didn't want to enter into the world affairs. They want to completely isolate themselves. No, it was not that. As you can see, it wasn't the policy of fleeing away, but the diplomats were constantly involved in making sure कि भाई जो कोल्ड वॉर का जो टेंशन है, ऑनगोइंग कोल्ड वॉर का टेंशन है, ये कोल्ड वॉर का टेंशन कम हो, ये कोल्ड वॉर का टेंशन कम हो, एंगेज इन वर्ल्ड पॉलिटिक्स, improve the India's diplomatic position, in make sure that India becomes one of the countries to whom everyone look at when it comes to as an economic power, as a political power, and as a growing country in the world affairs. It is important to remember that India chose to involve other members of the non-aligned group in this mission. As I mentioned, not only India but everyone who was every country that was part of the non-aligned movement, they want India, or the objective of the non-alignment was to make sure that each of these countries gets involved in the world affairs by at the same time keeping themselves away from the sphere of influence of these two organizations. During the Cold War era, India repeatedly tried to activate those regional and international organizations which were not part of the alliance led by the US and USSR. Nehru reposed great faith in genuine commonwealth of free and cooperating nations that would play a positive role in softening, if not ending, the Cold War. Of course, the Nehru, as we can say, देखिए प्रेजेंट डे सिनेरियो में हम जिस तरीके का हमें पॉलिटिक्स में अभी नहीं जाना है. फर्स्ट वी हैव टू लर्न व्हाट काइंड ऑफ पॉलिटिकल हिस्ट्री इंडिया हैड, what kind of political system was prevalent, what was the approach adopted by various political leaders in the past. हमें directly we are not supposed to jump to, we are not and we should not jump to any kind of conclusion based upon what we are listening right now in the media houses, और बहुत सारी जगहों पे we hear criticism about various political leaders. मैं नाम नहीं लेना चाहूँगा, ना ही मैं इस समय पॉलिटिक्स में एंटर करना चाहूँगा इस टॉपिक पे. तो अभी हमें सिर्फ लर्न करना है चीज़ों को. वी आर नॉट सपोज टू क्रिटिसाइज एनी पॉलिटिकल लीडर राइट नाउ इट्स आवर लर्निंग एज राइट नाउ. ऑफ कोर्स दोज हु वांट टू बी पॉलिटिशियंस वो बाद में भी बन जाएंगे, बाद में आप पॉलिटिक्स पूरी तरीके से खेल सकते हो, बट राइट नाउ व्हाट इज इंपॉर्टेंट इज टू लर्न थिंग्स, टू रीड फैक्ट्स. व्हाट इज इंपॉर्टेंट इज रीड फैक्ट्स. और मैं यही कहना चाहूँगा कि नेहरू वॉज वन ऑफ द बेस्ट पॉलिटिकल डिप्लोमेट, political negotiator, political leader when it comes to improving India's diplomatic position and making sure that India's voice gets heard, India's voice gets sustained, Indian voice gets sustained in the international sphere that was completely divided and that was completely dominated by the two superpowers. So that's why this paragraph basically talks of the policy that was adopted by India or NAM as an organization to make sure that the countries get involved in the political affairs at the international sphere during the Cold War. The non-alignment was not, as some suggest, a noble international cause which had little to do with the India's real interest. A non-aligned posture also served India's interests very directly in two ways. Now these are the these 2 points, point number 1, point number 2, these 2 points basically discusses how India used NAM as an organization to make sure that its interest gets heard and its political stand, and how India being part of non-aligned movement tried to negotiate with the two superpowers, and how कैसे इंडिया ने एक बैलेंस क्रिएट किया वर्ल्ड अफेयर्स में, जहाँ पे वो दोनों का पार्ट, जहाँ पे वो दोनों भी किसी भी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का पार्ट भी नहीं था, लेकिन वो दोनों ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस के साथ नेगोशिएट कर पाया जब भी इंडिया को जरूरत पड़ी. First, the non-alignment allowed India to take international decisions and stances that serve its interests rather than interests of the superpowers. As I mentioned, जो मैं अभी तक बोलता हुआ आया हूँ, non-alignment ऐसी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन थी जहाँ पर इंडिया को एक अपॉर्चुनिटी मिली, और सारी कंट्रीज को एक्चुअल में कहेंगे, बट ये इंडियन पर्सपेक्टिव से हम डिसाइड कर रहे हैं और इंडियन पर्सपेक्टिव से हम डिस्कस कर रहे हैं, तो वी विल बी टॉकिंग अबाउट इंडिया ओनली. सारी कंट्रीज इंडिया को एक स्टैंड मिला इंडिया को, एक पोजीशन मिली जहाँ पे वो दोनों ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस, किसी भी एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का या तो अपना पलड़ा उसकी तरफ भी झुका सकता था, यूएसएसआर की तरफ भी, और जब उसका इंटरेस्ट यूएस की तरफ से सर्व हो रहा था तो वो यूएस की तरफ भी अपना पलड़ा झुका सकता था। तो इन दैट केस इंडिया को किसी भी एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन की आइडियोलॉजी और किसी भी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन की बात नहीं माननी पड़ी। एट द सेम टाइम उसने एक थर्ड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन और द थर्ड वर्ल्ड कंट्रीज की एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन बना के अपने स्टैंड को प्रमोट भी किया। सेकेंड, India was often able to balance one superpower against another. If India felt ignored or unduly pressurized by one superpower, it could tilt towards the other. जैसा कि अभी मैंने आपको अपने एग्जाम्पल में समझाया कि अब अगर रशिया मुझे इग्नोर कर रहा है या रशिया मेरी बात को ढंग से नहीं मान रहा है तो मैं अपना सपोर्ट यूएस की तरफ दिखाऊंगा। तो अगर इंडिया जैसी कंट्री जिसका डिप्लोमेसी इतना अच्छा है, जिसका मिलिट्री स्ट्रेंथ इतना अच्छा है, जो कि एक ग्रोइंग कंट्री, जो कि एक कंट्री है जिसका इकोनॉमी भी बहुत अच्छे से ग्रो कर रहा है बिकॉज ऑफ द पॉलिसीज दैट वर अडॉप्टेड ड्यूरिंग दैट टाइम, तो इन दैट केस क्या होगा कि कोई भी कंट्री, कोई भी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, चाहे वो वार्सो पैक्ट हो, चाहे वो नेटो हो, कोई भी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन उसको हल्के में नहीं लेगा। और अगर हल्के में नहीं लेगा तो ऑब्वियसली उसका जो इंडिया का जो इकोनॉमिक इंटरेस्ट है, इंडिया का जो कोई भी पॉलिटिकल इंटरेस्ट भी होगा, उसे एक स्टैंड मिलेगा। और अगर रशिया इग्नोर करता है या यूएसएसआर इग्नोर करता है तो वो यूएस की तरफ अपना सपोर्ट झुका देगा। तो ये देख के शायद यूएसएसआर जले या फिर यूएसएसआर को तकलीफ हो तो शायद यूएसएसआर उसकी बात सुनने लगे इंडिया की, तो फिर वो शायद अपना इंटरेस्ट उधर झुका लेगा। सो इंडिया गॉट द अपॉर्चुनिटी टू क्रिएट अ बैलेंस। एंड ऑफ कोर्स अगर इंडिया को अपॉर्चुनिटी मिली है कि उसका डिसीजन या उसकी वॉइस को वो रख सकता है इंटरनेशनल स्फीयर में, तो ऑब्वियसली इट वाज अ major breakthrough in India's dealing with the countries who were actually the greats in world politics during that time. India's policy of non-alignment was criticized on number of counts. Here we may refer to only to criticism. अब किसी भी पॉलिसी अगर इंडिया एडॉप्ट करता है तो अगर उसके बेनिफिट्स होते हैं तो उसके क्रिटिसिज्म भी होता है। तो अगर इंडिया को स्टैंड मिला, इंडिया को एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का सपोर्ट मिला जहाँ से वो नेगोशिएट कर सकता है किसी भी इन दोनों टू सुपर पावर्स के साथ, तो ऑफ कोर्स उसकी कहीं ना कहीं इंडिया ने या फिर इंडिया की जो पॉलिसी होगी उसने कहीं ना कहीं नैम एज एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में भी कुछ ना कुछ कॉन्फ्लिक्ट क्रिएट किया होगा या फिर कुछ ना कुछ कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट डेवलप हुआ होगा जिसकी वजह से इंडिया की पॉलिसी को क्रिटिसाइज भी किया जाता है नैम में। फर्स्ट, इंडियाज नॉन अलाइनमेंट इज ऑल्सो सेड टू बी अनप्रिंसिपल्ड in the name of pursuing its national interest. India, it was said, often refused to take firm stand on crucial international issues. अब देखो, किसी भी कंट्री का इंटरनल इंटरेस्ट बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट रोल प्ले करता है उस कंट्री के एक्सटर्नल पॉलिसी डिसीजंस में या उस कंट्री के एक्सटर्नल पॉलिसी स्टैंड्स में। तो इन द नेम ऑफ नॉन अलाइनमेंट कई बार ऐसा भी हुआ कि कुछ इंटरनेशनल इश्यूज़ को इंडिया का सपोर्ट चाहिए था पर इंडिया ने उस चीज़ को उन इश्यूज़ को या उन इंटरनेशनल इश्यूज़ को सपोर्ट नहीं किया क्योंकि इंडिया का जो इंटरनल इंटरेस्ट था वो उन इश्यूज़ के कम्प्लीटली अगेंस्ट में था। तो अगर कोई भी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, अगर आप उसके मेंबर हो, तो अगर वो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन किसी एक इशू के खिलाफ या किसी के सपोर्ट में खड़ी हुई है और अगर आप उस स्टैंड को सपोर्ट नहीं करते बिकॉज ऑफ योर इंटरनल पॉलिटिक्स और इंटरनल स्टैंड्स, इंटरनल इंटरेस्ट, इंटरनल स्टेट इंटरेस्ट, तो कंप्लीटली अनप्रिंसिपल्ड आपके स्टैंड को कहा जाएगा क्योंकि इट विल बी काइंड ऑफ इट विल बिकम अ मैटर ऑफ ग्रीड। अगर मुझे किसी से मतलब है तो मैं अपने ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के बेसिक काउंट को या अपने ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के बेसिक स्टैंड को फॉरगो करके अपने इंटरेस्ट को सर्व करूंगा रादर देन सपोर्टिंग माय इंटरनल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन। तो इस बेसिस पे इंडिया का काफी बार क्रिटिसिज्म हुआ है। Second, it suggested that India was inconsistent. Second, it is suggested that India was inconsistent and took contrary postures, having criticized others for joining alliances. India signed Treaty of Friendship in August 1971 with USSR for 20 years. This was regarded particularly by outside observers as virtually joining Soviet alliance system. Indian government views was that India needed diplomatic and possibly military support during the Bangladesh crisis, and in case the treaty did not stop India from having good relations with other countries including US. India needed diplomatic and possibly military support during the Bangladesh crisis, and in any case the treaty did not stop India from having good relations with the US. Of course, अभी जैसे मैंने आपको बताया था कि इंटरनेशनल इश्यूज पे इंडिया का स्टैंड, और कई बार नैम एज एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के जो स्टैंड होता था उसके कंप्लीटली अपोजिट या इनकंसिस्टेंट हो जाता था. सो इधर अब एक एग्जांपल भी दिया है कि ड्यूरिंग द बांग्लादेश क्राइसिस इंडिया साइंड अ फ्रेंडशिप ट्रीटी टू गेट मिलिट्री एंड बोथ मिलिट्री एंड इकोनॉमिक सपोर्ट फ्रॉम यूएसएसआर. तो अब आउटसाइड जो ऑब्जर्वर्स थे उस टाइम के, उन्होंने इस चीज को रिगार्ड किया एज वर्चुअली ज्वाइनिंग द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, वर्चुअली ज्वाइनिंग यूएसएसआर. But it wasn't the case. But of course, there will be a criticism if you sign a treaty with any of the country, and if that treaty is signed between a leader of the one organization and another country, that is USSR का जो लीडर था रशिया और इंडिया के बीच में अगर कोई ट्रीटी होगी तो ऑब्वियसली क्रिटिसिज्म होना ही है, क्योंकि आउटसाइड ऑब्जर्वर्स को यही लगेगा कि एक तरीके से इंडिया ने रशिया की बात मान ली, एक तरीके से इंडिया ने रशिया के इंटरेस्ट को फॉलो करना स्टार्ट कर दिया. बट इंडिया ने अपना एट लास्ट इंडिया ने अपना स्टैंड क्लियर किया, क्योंकि उस बांग्लादेश क्राइसिस के टाइम पे हुआ ये भी था कि पाकिस्तान वॉज गेटिंग सपोर्ट फ्रॉम यूएस. सो एनीवे इफ उसमें कोई गलत काम नहीं किया कि इंडिया, जब यूएस पाकिस्तान को सपोर्ट कर रहा है तो ऑब्वियस सी बात है यूएस इंडिया को सपोर्ट नहीं करेगा. तो इन दैट केस द ओनली ऑप्शन लेफ्ट फॉर इंडिया ड्यूरिंग दैट टाइम वाज यूएसएसआर और रशिया. तो वहां पे उसको जाना ही था. तो इंडिया ने अपना स्टैंड क्लियर किया कि भाई मैंने जो ट्रीटी साइन की है, फ्रेंडशिप ट्रीटी, 20 ईयर फ्रेंडशिप ट्रीटी ड्यूरिंग दिस क्राइसिस पीरियड, इसका कोई रिलेशन नहीं है कि मैं नैम एज एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन से बाहर जाके अब नैम एज एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का जो प्रिंसिपल्स हैं या फिर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को छोड़ के अब मैं यूएसएसआर की तरफ चल पड़ा हूँ और यूएसएसआर ज्वाइन करने वाला हूँ. ऐसा नहीं है. और ना ही ऐसा है कि मैंने यूएस के साथ अपने जो फ्रेंडली रिलेशंस हैं इस ट्रीटी की वजह से वो ब्रेक कर दिए. नहीं, ऐसा भी नहीं है. The non-alignment as a strategy involved in Cold War context, as we will see in chapter 2, with disintegration of USSR and the end of the Cold War in 1991, the non-alignment, both as an international movement and as a core of India's foreign policy, lost some of its earlier relevance and effectiveness. However, non-alignment contained some core values and enduring ideas. It was based on the recognition that decolonized states share a historical affiliation and can become a powerful force if they come together. It means that poor and often very small countries of the world need not become followers of any of the big powers, that they could pursue an independent foreign policy. It was also based on the resolve to democratize the international system by thinking about an alternative world order to redress existing inequities. These core ideas remain relevant even after the Cold War has ended. अब chapter second जो हम start करेंगे, chapter second में we will be discussing about how this Cold War conflict ended and what was the and after this Cold War conflict ended, what happened was अब कंप्लीटली वर्ल्ड सिनेरियो चेंज हो गया. नैम का जो पोजीशनिंग था या जो नैम का स्टैंड था वो भी धीरे धीरे फेड होने लगा, क्योंकि जब कोल्ड वॉर कॉन्फ्लिक्ट एंड हो गई तो फिर नेगोशिएशंस किसी से करना ही नहीं है हमें. एक जो यूएस है, यूएस की हेजेमनी भी इस टाइम पे इस्टेब्लिश हो गई थी कोल्ड वॉर के एंड होने से, क्योंकि यूएस अगर यूएसएसआर का डिसइंटीग्रेशन हुआ मतलब रशिया हारा तो जो दूसरा सुपर पावर था वो जीता और अब उसकी हेजेमनी रहेगी. बट हेजिमनी को भी कंट्रोल फिर वर्ल्ड पॉलिटिकल सिनेरियो ये कम्प्लीटली चेंज हो गया. तो जब चेंजिंग वर्ल्ड पॉलिटिकल सिनेरियो जो था उसमें जो बेसिक प्रिंसिपल्स थे नैम के, कुछ बेसिक प्रिंसिपल्स फेड हो गए, बट कुछ जो दूसरे जो बेसिक प्रिंसिपल्स थे वो कम्प्लीटली इंटैक्ट रहे. जैसे कि इन इंडिपेंडेंट कंट्री गॉट द अपॉर्चुनिटी टू make sure that its voice gets heard at the international sphere. The inequities that were existent in the international system, they were removed and the international system became more democratized. So these were certain values. These and many other values, few other values were the major values that didn't lost their charm. They didn't lost their charm, but of course there were few that lost their charm. But everything, but when a world, when world scenario changes because of some political activity, then of course organization needs to change their approach. Organization should change their ideas and basic values, some basic values that become obsolete with time. So that is what happened with NEM. So in the chapter 2, we'll be discussing about the USSR and how this entire hegemony or this entire Cold War, sorry, this in the chapter 2 we'll be discussing how this Cold War conflict ended. So this is the end of your chapter number 1, the Cold War era. अब जो नेक्स्ट मेरा वीडियो आएगा इन दैट आई विल बी डिस्कसिंग दीज लिमिटेड टेस्ट बैंड ट्रीटी. हाँ, मैं चाहूँगा कि आप लोग एक बार इसको पढ़ ज़रूर लें बिफोर आई स्टार्ट एक्सप्लेनिंग यू. लिमिटेड टेस्ट बैंड ट्रीटी, न्यूक्लियर प्रोलिफरेशन ट्रीटी, स्ट्रेटेजिक आर्म लिमिटेशन टॉक्स 1, सॉल्ट 2, सॉल्ट 3, सॉरी स्ट्रेटेजिक आर्म रिडक्शन ट्रीटी, स्टार्ट 1, स्टार्ट 2. देर आफ्टर इस पोर्शन को आप बिल्कुल भी छोड़ दीजिए, ये कोई भी बिल्कुल भी काम का नहीं है. देन आई विल बी डिस्कसिंग विद यू सम ऑफ द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट चैप्टर्स एंड आई विल बी डिस्कसिंग सम मैप्स. छोटा सा वीडियो होगा, शॉर्ट और कंसेप्ट में मैं आपको सब कुछ समझा दूंगा. व्हाट आर द की व्हाट आर द की एरियाज ऑफ दिस चैप्टर दैट यू शुड फोकस ऑन एंड हाउ टू रिवाइज दिस चैप्टर, रिविजन स्ट्रेटजीज भी बता दूंगा. सो स्टे ट्यून्ड. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and click the black bell icon to get so make sure you subscribe, hit the bell icon, hit the like button if you like this video. और जो कोई भी आपके डाउट्स हो, सजेशंस हो, आप सभी कुछ मुझे मेल आईडी पे जो कि आपको डिस्क्रिप्शन में मिल जाएगी सेंड कर सकते हो, या तो फिर आप मुझे डायरेक्टली इनबॉक्स में पूछ सकते हो. और कुछ भी अगर सजेशन हो रिगार्डिंग कंटेंट या आपकी कुछ डिमांड्स हो रिगार्डिंग दिस चैप्टर एंड एवरीथिंग, एनीथिंग यू वांट, आप सब कुछ डिस्क्रिप्शन में से पढ़ के मुझे कांटेक्ट कर सकते हो या फिर डायरेक्टली कमेंट बॉक्स में मुझे क्वेश्चन पूछ सकते हो. थैंक यू फॉर वॉचिंग दिस वीडियो. बाय बाय.